Hello again. This is my short video lecture about chapter 2 of the textbook, which I'm trying to open here we go, the PowerPoint. So, chapter 2. Theoretical perspective on human behavior. Okay, before I continue on that, let me make sure that for me to remind you what's available on modules. Obviously, you have the instructions, which have the overview, learning objective. I will add this video that I'm recording right now, but this is the case study. There's only one, which is about Maria Chavez. And the PowerPoint, the discussion. There's a podcast. You can do the flashcards, which may help you in the quizzes and tests. And then multimedia. It's videos. If you have any, if you want to expand your understanding of some of the theories discussed in chapter 2. Like I said, I also, besides being included in the instructions, I also have them included in the, here, like the case study for Maria, which is an MP4, it's a video. I also have, I also have in case you still haven't had a chance, or, I understand that the mail is slow, so if you don't have the book, I provided you with a link to a PDF of earlier version. Like I said, you are responsible for the 6th edition, but hey, I'm just throwing this for your own benefit. It's taking too long, so you may want to, oh, here we go. You may just want to, let me check something. Oops. I meant to. So do not use the case study in this PDF. You have to use this. That's why I recorded, because the case study is changed from one edition to another. Let me remind you what I probably already remind you, and on my comments in the first discussion, that you do have to read the chapter, because the way you're going to be able to answer, the questions on the discussion, it's not just reading the case study. You need to read the whole chapter. Okay, having said that, let me go, hopefully, quickly over some aspects from the chapter. I'm not going to, read all of the different perspective, because, system perspective, think about system as in, you have your school system and your community system and work system, family system, peer systems. So, you have your inputs, you have your outputs, but, some may go, directly into your school, and it may have a connection with the community and your family and so on. And then, there might be some outputs, but also it may go feedback loop, depending on the situation. Let's see if we can actually, oh, hold on one second. I think I had made this is my mistake. I need to correct that error. I think this PowerPoints were originally created for the an earlier, even though I add stuff to it, really it's the case study in chapter number 2 is the case of Maria Chavez, and like I said, I actually gave you the video. It's really a computer reading her case. So you don't really have an excuse not to, have it, even if you don't have the book. So the system theory, encompass a lot of different, systems in itself, like the diagram right here, which is probably one of the easiest ways to sort of visualize this perspective. Yeah, I know. I put a check mark, about this situation, and I forgot that I did. So I'm gonna just move along. Oh, here it is, the 6th edition. Okay, so just make sure that you don't base your discussion just in terms of what you read in the case study. I mean, yes, but you use the rest of the chapter to really answer your question. Encourage you to really pay attention to the exhibits, which are like figures, to try to understand what each perspective means. For instance, this is the conflict perspective. So examples are critical race theory, intersectionality theory, empowerment theory, feminine theories. Obviously, I am not gonna pretend that you are become an expert on all of this individual theories, but at least pin down what the concept of this perspective actually entails. So, conflict theory or conflict perspective, you can attribute it to Karl Marx. The theory state that there's a continuous class conflict or inequality in our society because of the resources are not distributed equally, right? We have resources here, wealth, power. You heard about the 1%, right? And we're all the rest of us are part of the 99%. There's also, privilege, where you live, right? It could be, better schools or better way to leisure, maybe even more police or safety, in labor. Obviously there's, I guess, this symbol, or this means, the different stages of labor, right? This one, we can argue that our unions, which they're all being just sort of attacked recently due to our current administration, because they defend the rights of employees. We have the dominant group on one side and the non-dominant group, which obviously you see how the dominant group is less people and the non-dominant group is more people. I think you probably can relate to that if you think about, social inequality, and, which creates, issues, more than well, maybe not more than ever. We have seen conflicts due to, racial, police violence, for instance, right? And anyway, that's an example. And some of this theory, because of the inequality, it sparks or trigger social change, and sometimes for the good, sometimes, it could be sometimes for the good of the dominant group, but others times for the good of the non-dominant group, and maybe in some cases for both. So conflicts, think about oppression, microaggressions, structural inequality, exploitation, all those things. There's a lot to discuss here, because the time, I'm not gonna necessarily go over it. So next topic would be the exchange and choice perspective. I try to make it, more visual than, otherwise. I want to, hold on. Okay, to continue. So we have the exchange and choice perspective. As you can see from this diagram, we have material and non-material resources, right? And this sort of symbolize the exchange that either an individual or groups, where an individual, or how too, I guess, an individual or groups exchange resources, both material and non-material. You have here values, it's really more of a non-material norm, social capital, all those aspects. Some of them can be, I guess, transformed into material resources, right? Because the social capital, for instance, is, your friends, your family, connections, right? And those could be, influence, for instance, your job or getting a job, and all those things. Now, if you see here, there's a sort of an old-fashioned balance here, right, between benefits and costs, because are your values, for instance, and your norms are gonna bring you some benefit, but maybe some cost, because maybe either culturally or religious belief may cost you, or for that matter benefit you, depending on what type of norms or values are we talking about. I'm not going to give you a specific example because, well, first you can read the chapter. Second, I don't want to give away any answers for the discussion. So, for instance, the social exchange theory test that, resources are exchanged, and, you're trying to maximize your benefit, and minimize cost. So, obviously, if you have more here, it would go down because it's heavier, right? You want to increase your benefits, and, then your costs would decrease. So we make some decisions on, hopefully, or, this perspective that, we may have, a social connections, expectations, obviously for all of you, you had the expectation to go to college. Well, you did because you have your bachelor's, right? And you have the expectation of completing your master's. Well, and there is a cost, right, to going and get more education. But you think that the benefits would, overpower and be bigger than the cost. So you see here choice driven by self and community interest. Oh, yes, because nobody's an island, right? Like the expression said. So we're thinking about ourselves, our families, and, our community, hopefully. I'll just leave it at that for now. Don't forget to go over, the, slides and the book. Let's see. The next is social construction perspective. The idea of social constructionism is that we as a society give, construct or even items, a meaning that reality is based on whatever as a society, or even doesn't have to be, it could be fractions of that society, give meaning to some reality, like what's an hour, what's a month, what's a flag, what's a country, right? And we really, there weren't any, I guess this is a tractor, we created that as humans, right? We created, cities and houses that, for the need of heating. Well, we created chimneys, right? And when decided that, hey, any house above certain latitude, right, which is where we have winters that are cold, it may be a good idea to have, a chimney, or, the rest. Also, we have the shared meaning of reality. We also have multiple realities. Think about when, people that may have to sort of, there's a lot of talk a few years ago about the so-called changing codes, which is meaning that you may have a way of talking at home, and there might be another talking outside of the home. Well, there could be multiple realities in terms of that. You have to, you may have to behave, let's say, in a certain way in church that is different from work, and, this is just examples. Don't think that any of the examples that I'm giving you are the only answer or the only examples. You can find, different ones. So, why did this matter, right? Well, because, sometimes we think about, as social workers, that, oh, this is a reality. But is it? Can we change social construction of certain concept to maybe fit our situation better, to advocate, right? And, so since, we use, if you think of money, right, it's just paper, but we have all agree, right, that a dollar is a dollar, and, it's worth, 100 pennies, and, it's not a lot. You can get maybe a can of soda for it, but there's been, challenges to that with the, what is it called? Uh, Coinbit, the cyber money, which I'm blanking on the on its name. So, we change our reality constantly. So, I think that's a good introduction. You may have to think about this particular perspective when you analyze Maria's case study. So, moving along, the psychodynamic perspective. Let me, like always, get a figure. In this case, it's Exhibit 2.6 in your book. Psychodynamic perspective really involves the internal process of that involve our needs, our drive, and our emotion, which not always is something that we consciously can deal with, or sometimes we, if we look here, right, we have conscious, preconscious, unconscious process. So sometimes why did we react that way? And, I know I'm not giving you necessarily a good example, but that's on purpose because, I want to be more general, I guess. So, for instance, childhood experience, may have influenced whatever, excuse me, whatever your behavior may have been to a, like it says here, a stimulus, right? You might be some external demands, by that I mean that it's not internal, like, hunger or thirst, right? That although I guess hunger can be enhanced or extended or influenced by external demand, but I'm getting, away from the topic. External demands, your boss is really, demanding a lot of things, and, consciously using that, this is what I sign up for, but, sometimes, your unconscious can just, react. And, sometimes it's in a good way, sometimes it's not. And that may be, may have a sort of a background due to, something that happened in your childhood or in with your family. Of course, it depends on the magnitude of that stimulus, right? And, but it all boils down to try to sort of see a pattern, try to explain, human behavior. We're giving you several ways in this chapter to sort of explain human behavior. In fact, that's what the book is titled, right? Dimensions of Human Behavior. So, hey, we're going to hear a lot about human behavior. This is just one. This might be the more, I don't know, I guess you can call it mysterious, maybe a word. Don't quote me on that one. Sort of perspective, because it is it had a lot to do with that. Why do we do things, and we can't control it? We do it unconscious. And if you, which I suggest, I can't do that because of a limited time in this lecture. Talk about Freud and all of his theories. By the way, I should mention that it's a good practice to attach, relate, a couple of people, like Freud to this particular theory. Marx, like I said before, to another theory like conflict. Karl Marx, that is. So it is, because in the real world, you may hear, oh, Karl Marx said this, and then you know what they're talking about, and so you can also interact and know, contribute to that conversation. And it's part of, let me say this, there's a lot from this class and the second class that I assure you that it will be part of not only of your licensure exam, but that you're gonna need to use for other courses and for the profession of being a social worker. Okay, so the next perspective is developmental. As you can see, it is developmental in the sense of we go from, oops, I didn't mean to do that, from child, just say teenager, adult, to an older person. And there's many different things that affect that sort of trajectory. Cultural, social identities, economic circumstances. I don't see these three here, necessarily in that order, meaning that, oh, this happened last. Not so much. And remember, you have a double-sided arrow. You can have culture, influencing, your childhood, probably, at different levels. Social identities, when you become, quote unquote, a man or woman or an adult or a professional. Economic circumstances, right? It may be different, when you're older. I mean, maybe, retirement, those things that will help you manage, economically that situation. We have here protections, biological and psychological, and then here we have historical context, generational influence, personal experience. Like I said, don't view these three in any particular order. Just that, have something to do with, the stage, right? I don't know, historical, whatever happened now. We're going through a pandemic, so and let's say this is probably you, right? Because you're an adult over 20 something, and we're going through this pandemic. So, well, you can add your own thoughts about it, because, you may be going this stage, right? In terms of, as a mother or a father or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, quarantine at home, and that may have, and what that, how that affected, let's say, your children, during this. See how it's the stage and the task, for a young person, well, they need to learn, go to school. For an adult, well, it's task, you need to work and provide and all of those things. So, it um, explain, or you can see the influences in behavior, right, at a different stages. There's also risk, and you know and development. You hopefully, this, when you go age, you have more education, you have more experience, and so on and so forth. Let's see if there's anything else I want to add. No, I think I'm gonna go to the next perspective, social behavior perspective. So, continuing and moving along, social behavior perspective. I want to start from the top. So, what is this behavioral structure and behavioral agency? Structure means, social forces, social control. As you see here, you have friends, family, school, work, private institution, cultural groups. So, social forces, right? Agency, oh, I missed something here. Structure is, this is more at a macro level, although from other classes that maybe it's a meso level too, but I'm not going to split hairs right now. And agency here means something different than what you think about an agency, an agency as an institution. And no, what this means is the sort of the capability of you, for example, having free will, that you can, you are capable of making choices due to free will, meaning that you see how we have two opposite sort of behavioral concepts here, structure and agency, sort of, I don't know, don't quote me on this word, but sort of battling it out, kind of, or competing maybe. So this is the one that it would be, influenced by all of this social forces, as you see here, and this is where you as an individual have the free will, to think, to behave independently. But as you see, it's a cycle. It may be influence, and sometimes one would be stronger than the other, and it sort of the mark our interactions or responses to our environment. You interact, you have the free will, but you also have I don't know, regulations here at work, at school, the friends culture. So conditioning, reinforcement, modeling, observation, belief, expectation, rewards, and punishment, right? You can talk about each one of these connected to work, for instance, right? rewards from being on time and performing, and and the family. If you don't not good to your spouse, well, the rest. And then your expectations could be due to friends and family. You're modeling what your parents did. You're imitating again what your friends might be doing. Well, you get the picture. Reinforcement, conditioning due to cultural groups or friends. I think you get the picture of what I'm trying to show you here. The most important thing that to really understand this figure is to know what structure means here, right? You get it? Social, all the social forces, and agency, which is your own, that, you have your own free will, right? You can decide for yourself, and that's not always, the outcome may not be totally, your free will. So these are two forces that are competing. And the next one is humanistic perspective. Okay, so the humanistic perspective. This is the one that states that, as, humans, we have free will. Sounds familiar, right? And we strive for what some of the, Maslow and actually Carl Rogers, call, and others too, the self-actualization. I'm going to be a little bit more specific in a minute. So, but contrary to Freud, this perspective is sort of follows the idea that we're conscious, right? We're behaving consciously, and remember how the Freud, the psychodynamic, attributes a lot to the non-conscious, but this one, hence the term humanistic, right? I guess that's one way of remembering, that have to do with our conscious. It also assumes that, people are good and that people want to improve, as you can see here, the need for belonging, the search for meaning, potential for growth, empathy, warmth, genuineness, all of those sounds like, improving and things things you want to work on, right? Now, I haven't, and sometimes on purpose, haven't really dig into the specific, individuals of each perspective, because I want you to read. But I'll give you, in this case, the two most known people for this perspective are Maslow and Rogers. Two different people, two different sort of perspective. You can read what he said. I don't have to do that, but Maslow created this pyramid, as you can see on your screen, that of needs. This is the hierarchy of needs. What are your basic needs? Reading, food, water, etc. Then you sort of, once you have those, you move off. Once you have safety, you move off. Once you have this friendship, family, and sexual intimacy, and actual sexual intimacy, you know what I mean, then you move on. And then until you reach this self-actualization, right? It's basically it for now. Then Carl Rogers, have some similarities. He's more of a, sort of state in his perspective or theory that, this humanistic approach is growth promoting, growing, meaning, like you see here, need for belonging, search for meaning, potential growth, so growth promoting. And it does involve, I know this is not necessarily the best graph, but that's the one I found, that, it is genuine and, and also involve acceptance. Once, one example may be, in a way of growing, if you were a child and, you were punished. Now, I'm not going to get into the debate of what kind of punish. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that it wasn't physical, right? Just because I don't want to get into all the I don't have the time right now. And, as a child, you're not going to like that, you got a timeout, or you were said, no TV for a week, no Nintendo for a week, or whatever. But, you grow or move into acceptance of it, because you knew that you're accepting those, because it makes you a better person, and you understand. Maybe now you're a parent and you're doing the same thing, and you have to realize that, well, my kids will understand where am I coming from. As long as, to a certain extent, I'm not going to discuss the level of punishment because, I'll get into other things, but that's just an example that, some people even may accept, harder punishment. But again, I'm not going to enter into that and deal with it. Well, I'll accept that because, maybe I was a rowdy kid and, it made me a better person. Those are just examples. This is not what I would believe, Anyway, it's a longer discussion. I don't believe in physical punishment, but that's, you don't have to agree, and that's another day, another story. So, let's see what else we got here. Again, and everything should be related to the case studies. And I think that was it. Probably longer than I would have preferred, but, it is what it is. Bye.